With YouTube attacking alternative media, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon for just $1 per month. Link below. Star Wars The Last Jedi releasing deleted scenes, but we're not going to be able to see them. Yeah. One of the biggest problems of Star Wars The Last Jedi, ultimately for me, was what I felt was a clear lack of vision for the overall story. There was so much going on, so many little plot developments from The Force Awakens that were just completely ignored, little plot holes that made no sense for The Last Jedi as a whole. And then even now we're seeing things where they're trying to run some kind of damage control. Like yesterday, Star Wars Twitter account was showing off images of the bombers from the opening of the movie, and saying that all the bombs had little magnets on them that would then drop them through space so they would hit their target. Now, one of the complaints I made about that scene was that they're in an open airlock, you know, in a bomber in space. There's no air in there, right? There should be no gravity in there, essentially. And yet Rose's sister, whatever her name is, Tina, I think, or whatever, she had no mask on and she was walking around just fine. And, you know, because keep in mind, we see her, shots looking down as, you know, over the dreadnought, complete open space, the bombs fall, and they hit their target like we're watching a World War II documentary or something like this. It just felt very weird and didn't fall into the physics of space. Now, I know what you're thinking, Matt, come on, this is Star Wars. This is a space western, space opera, sci-fi sort of thing. Physics don't apply, especially with like the Flying Leia scene. Now, the Flying Leia scene, physics applied, right? When the airlock was busted, everyone got sucked out. And we know what happened next. I will never forget. Every time I think about that scene, all I keep thinking about is dun 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 dun. Like, I just think the Superman theme song. That's all I think. If you haven't seen that little clip, you should. It's very funny. Now, here's what it says in the article here. Lucasfilm has some very special Star Wars The Last Jedi deleted scenes on its way, although these won't be on the Blu-ray or digital release. Right? The latest edition of the Star Wars show features the exciting announcement that Rian Johnson has contributed some exclusive material to the upcoming novelization from writer Jason Fry. Johnson reveals that he helped the author flesh out some interesting deleted scenes from the film, adding that's some of the fun stuff you can do in a novel that you can't always get into on the screen. So let's just unpack that for a second. Let's just unfurl that for a moment. Rian Johnson essentially is saying, well, there is some stuff we couldn't get to in the movie, so we're just going to pepper that into the novelization so then fans can get an overall better idea of the story itself to fill in those pesky plot holes that people keep complaining on my Twitter about. That's basically what's going on here. Just another reason why I have complained about this movie in terms of its story. It didn't know what it wanted, and that is just a general trait of Rian Johnson being a writer. But it says here that this means that some of the hugely important material excised from the finished Last Jedi will be introduced back into the official Star Wars canon once the novelization is released on March 6th. So on March 6th, I can finally read about all the little details that I never knew about. And actually, one of the things I want to do is I want to do a Star Wars book club sort of thing. And so that could actually be the good start to it, would be to start reading that and discussing with people, because I do want to read it. I do want to know what's in there. I'm still kind of upset, though, that I feel like this was little details that they wanted to, you know, put into this thing. Now, it says that Rian Johnson and I had some amazing conversations for I Tells a Star Wars show. We got to write entirely new scenes for the book, Han Solo's funeral, Rose and Paige Tico together. It was Paige, not Tina, sorry. And further explorations of the fascinating world of Canto Bight, just to name a few. So those three things. For one, I've talked about this before. The Han Solo funeral scene was one that was talked about a year ago, right? Like when it came up to the discussion of why wasn't Lando Calrissian in the movie, and I was like, but isn't there supposed to be a funeral scene? Because that was talked about. So why wouldn't they get him there? Now, if you go back to watch the beginning of the movie, which clearly they're going to be adding in a whole bunch of information that connects The Force Awakens to The Last Jedi. One of the things you got to think about here too is get to the end of the movie, just the end of Force Awakens, right? The end of Force Awakens. Everyone goes back to the Resistance base, right? Everyone's there. And that wasn't until the end of The Last Jedi where Rey and Poe meet for the first time, essentially therefore setting up a new love triangle because Finn and Rose have each other now, so Finn's out of the game in that regard. It's going to be Poe and Kylo and Rey. That's going to be the triangle. That's what they're going for now. I guarantee it. And he's like, oh yeah, we never met the last time, but we all went to the thing together. Now, if you remember, one of the biggest complaints out of The Force Awakens was, and J.J. Abrams has admitted to this mistake as well, is that when they got back from Starkiller Base to Leia, Leia walked over to Rey, a girl of which she had never met before, and hugged her. That was a mistake that J.J. Abrams admitted. And I took that as being Rey being the central character of the film. Her story is the eyes through which the audience is seeing it. That was their way of comforting the audience, essentially. And again, I can't watch that movie without getting teary-eyed when that happens. This is how I am. But ultimately, that was the thing that they had a problem with. But you're telling me, though, in the moments from there, that when they go and they put the map in the thing and they figure out where Luke is, that they wouldn't have met. Again, just kind of poor writing, in my opinion. Now, Rose and Paige Tico together, obviously people can complain about that quite a bit. Like, why should we care about this whole relationship? Now they're going to give us more with that, to give us a reason to care about the death of Rose. I'm also pretty sure we're going to get a lot more Admiral Hodo. We're going to get a lot more of that as to why we as an audience should care about when she died. That should be a thing too. And then also Canto Bight. Now, Canto Bight, I will say this about Canto Bight. I hated the scene. Liked the politics of the scene. I liked the politics of what DJ was saying quite a bit. I found that to be quite fascinating, right? When he was like, how do these people make their money? And he was talking about, war profiteering. That was an interesting place to have that discussion. But we got no reason to care about it in that moment. We had no reason. And so now if we get a lot more information out of Canto Bight as to why this stuff happened the way that it happened, then yeah, sure, fine. We're going to get a bit more info here that will definitely come in handy. Anyway, it says here, it's possible that some of the deleted scenes actually shot by Johnson will be available for fans to watch on the upcoming home video release as well, which is true. I've seen a couple things floating around on Twitter right now, a couple little scenes, new scenes involving Rey. And when she's on the island and some kind of fire that takes place, something like that. So we will get some more deleted scenes. I just really hope that the further we get close, I just really hope that there's a lot of retconning that's going to happen. And I feel they're going to be retconning a lot of stuff in the Last Jedi novelization. One of the reasons why the novelization is waiting until almost 4 months past the release of the movie, or 3.5 months past the release of the movie, essentially, before it comes out, because I think they've gone back to tweak a couple things in order to fill in the gaps that they just, graciously omitted from the movie. So then they can say, oh, but no, it's part of canon. We've explained it. It's just in the book. Further adding to my criticism of Rian Johnson, of where he is a tell, not a show writer. That's what he does. He tells you things. He doesn't show you things. And that is one of the biggest complaints with this movie. So I'm hoping that the book fills it in, and that the next movie does everything it can to make us forget.